back to the Your Life Unfiltered podcast. In this podcast, we dig deep into the life experiences of our guests to connect the dots between their prior experiences and what they're doing today. Today, we have special guest Will Collette. Will, if you want to quickly introduce yourself.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yep, my name is Will, and right now I'm a full-time content creator. I recently separated from the Air Force, so have some experience with working with SpaceX and NASA and some rockets and nukes and things like that. But just chasing the dream of owning a supercar and making car content in California.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I guess the first question is, what got you to where you're at right now? It's like, I know you had a childhood dream of doing it, but I'm guessing was there like a plan in mind on how to get there, like a sequential plan, or you just kind of fell into it?
I think there was always a plan. How I got here, obviously there's things played out differently as I went, but I think I was 12 or 13 years old when Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2 came out, and I saw a yellow Lamborghini on the front cover. And I knew from that point forward, like the dream was to have a car like that. And that became a very central focus for a long period of time. And then Midnight Club LA came out. And then I learned that I had this infatuation with the city of Los Angeles. So I put two and two together and said, okay, I'm going to get there. But first, I've always had this dream of joining the military. So I served an Air Force career kind of right after college. And as soon as that career was over, moved straight to LA and can confidently say that I have checked off the majority of the boxes that I had as a kid, and I'm not 30 yet. So now it's time to come up with some new stuff.
All right.
That is fantastic. Well, great to hear that story as well as the kind of journey that you've gone through. Just to go back a little bit, so you joined military, but what was the thought process behind joining military? Was there a specific reason that you wanted to get something specific out of it, or you can just fell into it? You want us to walk through that?
Great question. There was something that I asked all of my troops one day, and it was, what is your why? If you're familiar with Simon Sinek, he has the golden circle rule, finding your why, not just a what or a how, as to, why you do what you do. And joining the military isn't exactly something I think you should do unless you have a very strong why, because there's a lot of risks involved. There's a lot of sacrifices involved. So you really got to know why you want it. I grew up, my dad was a retired Army major. My sister actually is in the Air Force now as a pilot. My uncle was a Marine. My grandpa was in the Navy. I was just in that military environment. And I grew up watching military movies. I remember when Call of Duty 1 came out. I remember when Medal of Honor came out. Like, those things start to shape your personality traits as a kid. And I remember watching Band of Brothers as a kid and wanting to be just like Major Winters, wanting to be a leader. I wanted to be somebody that someone could count on. I wanted to be someone that had their values straight, somebody that could make decisions under pressure, somebody that, if shit's hitting the fan and a lot of people don't know what to do, they can look to you. And again, like being part of something bigger than yourself, being part of a mission, making a difference, serving, it all kind of falls in line with joining the military. So I knew that was always going to be a stop in my journey, but the military was not a lifetime career option for me. So I only served the required number of years and happily separated to pursue what I really love more than anything, which is cars.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
That is awesome. So it sounds like you were able to leverage the training and experiences in the military to create that framework to succeed in whatever you did next, right? Yeah, I can definitely see that parallel, right? It's because you learn a lot about hard work, about discipline, about how to speak with respect to your superior officers and all that kind of stuff. Like all that basic framework that it takes to succeed later in life, you were able to instill that within yourself by getting the experience of the military.
100%, man. You explained that really well. And there's this really great lesson that I learned while I was in the Air Force, because I remember joining, I was like a month or two deep in, and I knew I had many years ahead of me. I was at a base that didn't have a lot going on. I was kind of in the middle of nowhere. There weren't any big cities nearby. There weren't many people my age. And I was like 22, I think 22, 23. And I remember looking at Jay Alvarez's Instagram, and I was like, this guy's younger than me, and look at how much stuff he's doing. Look at how awesome his life is. And I can't do this even if I wanted to right now, because I have signed away the next several years of my life in a contract that cannot be broken. And I remember even seeing kids that I went to college with doing fun stuff, getting to go to LA, getting to travel to New York or Greece or whatever, just doing cool stuff and taking risks. And I was like, well, I mean, I took some risks, but I was like, I felt trapped. And I feel a lot of people now, especially, they feel trapped or they can't figure out their passion. They don't know what direction they need to go. A lot of people have what I call a victim mindset, where they are just like, they're a victim of their circumstances and they feel trapped. I was literally trapped somewhere. Some people feel trapped, and both of them can be just as restrictive. And I decided, okay, if I'm in this environment where I don't have 100% control over my freedom, what can I control? And I learned that it was what I consumed on a day-to-day basis. So I decided to double down on reading, and I subscribed to Forbes magazine. I read a lot of Forbes. I listened to a lot of podcasts like the one that you're making here. I listened to Tom Bilyeu, Simon Sinek, Gary Vee. I wanted to consume as much knowledge as I could because I saw myself as like a slingshot. And I tell this to a lot of people that feel like they're stuck, is that if you're in either a circumstance that can't be changed, if you have like a ball and chain of some kind that you don't have control over, what can you control to kind of slingshot yourself? Because while I was spending years and years reading and studying and sharpening skills, a lot of my friends that were in college with me that were out doing the things I wanted to do had a lot of distractions, got to play around, got to enjoy life. And then when I got out of the military, boom, I shot past a lot of people because I had all this stuff, this potential just building. I was waiting, and the biggest thing is this thirst, this hunger for what I wanted was growing. And I was like, it wasn't like envy, but it was like hey, like, this is my
Motivation.
time. It's
I got
coming,
it.
baby.
Yeah.
So like now when I like people like, how do you have all this energy? It's like, how do you not? Like, I sat here and watched all you guys have fun for years. Now it's game time. I'm not slowing down. So I love to tell people that feel trapped, like, hey, take inventory of what you do have control over, double down on those things, and pass those people. Don't get envious. Don't make excuses. Make small habits, make changes that have a long-term effect.
That is amazing, and actually it reminds me of a lot of different things. Well, first off, I could tell you're heavily influenced by Gary Vee, because Gary Vee is a proponent of going through the grind. So
Oh yeah, baby.
yeah. The other thing is what you're describing about those small changes lead to, dramatic impacts on the long run. That reminds me of the book Atomic Habits. I don't know if you
Atomic
had the
habits, man. You
yeah,
know it. Yep, that flight
yeah.
pattern.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So I'm seeing the parallels in a lot of what you're saying with some of the stuff you just mentioned there. So
Hmm.
that's awesome. That's amazing. So I think from that perspective, you definitely had that right mindset pretty young, because you realize pretty quickly that if you are in a situation where you're trapped, these are the steps you kind of need to do to
Hmm.
break out of that at some point. So great
Yep.
job. Kudos to you for figuring that out at such a young age and then grinding
I
down and
mean,
doing the
you got a
work.
lot of time to think when there's no internet, no cell phones, no windows in your building. I mean, your buddy Shiv can tell you, man. We would every day we come home like, God dang, this was a carbon copy of yesterday. Like, you got to chase something.
Awesome, awesome. So just kind of moving forward from there. So you basically graduated from military, or just, I don't know what's the right term, retire. So
Hmm.
what is the first thing you had? You had accumulated all this knowledge, as you were there. So as soon as you retired, what was the first thing that you did? Like, where was the first place that you went?
Yep. So I took a one-way drive straight to California. So I was stationed in Utah at the time. I
Ah,
drove
okay.
through Vegas. I remember waking up in Vegas, the halfway point, thinking, "Oh my God, it's finally all over. I can do literally whatever I want." And you know what I did? The first place I went was my first job, remote ghost writing for Tom Bilyeu, the guy that hosts the show Impact Theory, if you're familiar with that.
Oh,
I
yes.
drove straight to his
Hmm.
house, and I showed up and I said, "I'm done with the military. I'm ready to start." And we kicked it off from there. But I know Gary Vee, going back to him, like, he always tells people, like, try everything. I was 20, God, I think 25-ish, something like that, when I finished the military, when I separated. I tried everything. Like, I had so many jobs in like a 2-year span where I was like, I was in finance, I worked in a car shop, I helped someone build a YouTube channel, I helped someone with a studio, like, I did Postmates, like, I tried so many different things and kind of slowly honed it down on what I truly wanted. And there were a lot of things along the way where it's like, okay, well, I like filming, concerts, but I learned that I like filming cars more. And then it's like, okay, I like doing stuff with models. So how can we get models back to what do we love most? Okay, cars again. And then it's like, all right, well, I still kind of have a thing for the military. So how can we relate military stuff with the car thing again? So really just trying everything and figuring out, honing in what that passion is. And then once I knew for sure, like, this is what I want, at least for right now, making my entire life that thing.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I completely get it. It's the obsession, right? It's whenever you're
Hmm.
obsessed with something, that's
Hmm.
when you do like phenomenal things that people would never expect you to do. So
You got it.
completely hear you on that. And the other piece that actually resonated with me is that you tried a bunch of things. So that's like rapid experimentation. So it's like
Yes.
you had like that crunch time where it's like you need to figure out what you want to do and why, what's your why and why you want to do it. And for you,
Hmm.
that was that 2 year span of figuring it out. So
Yep.
that's
Yep.
fantastic.
Yeah, and just referencing was something you mentioned already, right? So you basically were heavily influenced by these movies, Need for Speed, and there's a Call of Duty that you mentioned. So it looks like that you always had some love for the cinema, and you try to kind of put the two together when you started these experimentation. Would you agree with
Yeah.
that?
I think it's the movies and the video games that I had as a kid were just really inspirational. It's funny now, I don't really watch movies that much. I almost hate most of the movies that come out. It's kind of funny. But like at that age, those games and those movies just they hit something. They were a portal to a different world, a different. I grew up in the South in like a small town. So when I'm playing Need for Speed and I'm driving a Lamborghini, I'm like, what is this? Like I've never seen a Lamborghini in my life. And then like we go to Band of Brothers and I watch an 8-part miniseries that's super well produced, and the whole thing is based on like a brotherhood that is willing to die for each other. I think I was watching that when I was like 15 years old. Like I'm watching that, I'm like, whatever they have, like I want to do this. Like this is cool stuff. And I think just getting that at a very, very young age, getting exposed to it, that was something that just hit home, where I was like, I was able to hold on to it and be like, this is the direction I want to go. So yeah, I think it's just being exposed to it. And it's funny because we see so many kids nowadays, like, watching superhero movies, watching whatever, playing whatever video game. You think nothing of it, but like I'm a perfect example of a kid that played a video game that my aunt just randomly bought me as a 12-year-old because she wanted me to have something to do at her house. And I have built my entire personality around it. It's just kind of funny how that stuff plays out.
That's that's fascinating stuff. Wow.
Yeah. So you're in content creation now, right? So
Yes.
do you have like a specific strategy or advice for people that want to get started in that space?
Yeah. The best piece of advice I have, and I've talked to a lot of other content creators of, how do I get started when I was new? Be consistent. It's the hardest thing to follow. It's the hardest thing to stay true to. It's easy to say. So many content creators fall off because they aren't consistent with their content. You got to be consistent with uploading.
Oh, that is actually, it's funny you mentioned that because it's one thing I've been telling Deep Bump since we started this podcast 12 weeks ago. It was like, no matter what, every single week there should be an episode out. I've been telling him
Yeah.
since day one. I mean,
Yep.
Deep Bump can attest to that, right? I was pushing that
we have
hard.
been we've been very consistent with our podcast, and actually we have a whole sessions lined up for the next of the rest week, and we are actually set for the rest of the year actually, to be
That's
honest.
great. Then pump episodes a week. I remember when I first started YouTube, I processed, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do one episode a week, which took forever to edit. And then I started to talk to some other content creators, and they're like, try to get two. If you can get two, you'll grow. And then I started managing this YouTuber named Life Apollos. He was like, you really need three. And I was like, three? I was like, you know how much time this
That's a
takes to
lot.
edit?
Yeah,
That's a
And
that's a
lot.
I
lot.
did three for a year. And guess what? My following, it grew. And I was like, there you go. And then I stopped uploading, and then the following kind of dropped off. I shifted
Hmm.
my focus to TikTok. But yeah, I've got friends now that just, they'll get a lot of fame, they'll kick off with something, they'll have the momentum and everything, and then they just get lazy and they don't want to keep uploading, and then their content, it just drops. And it's consistency. That is the biggest thing. Who's it? Casey Neistat quote: "Just keep uploading." That's all he says
Hmm.
about YouTube.
That's true. I
Hmm.
forgot about Keith Knight. He's like the original YouTube
Blogger.
He's
influencer.
the
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah,
He's the
yeah.
OG.
Yeah, he's the original YouTube. I still remember the Just Do It video with Nike from like that's like I think his first viral video or something like that.
Yeah, I bought a boosted board because of that guy.
Awesome. So basically, you mentioned you also shot the SpaceX rockets as well as
Yes.
missile launcher. So how did you find the leads for that? Who put you in touch with these people?
I signed a
Really?
dotted line that said I'll do whatever the U.S. government wants me to do. Honestly, um, I when I first signed up, I was on target to becoming a fighter pilot. Went to a ground school. I was being groomed to be a fighter pilot. Then I found out there was a 12-year commitment. And I said that doesn't exactly work in with my plan to move to L.A. Because I don't want to be in an Air Force base when I'm 30 something years old. So how do we do a different career path? So I was getting into filming at the time. I was starting to film little nightclubs and stuff. I was like, all right, well, let's do something filming related. So I asked for public affairs. It was the closest job I could get. And they said, okay, you got public affairs. I was one of 7 guys out of however many thousands of cadets graduated in the country the year that I graduated. So it was kind of like winning the lottery. And then they said, okay, you have your choice between, it was like 6 or 7 bases, Aviano in Italy, like outside of Venice. I had Hickam in Hawaii. I had Florida. I had all these awesome bases. And I picked Lompoc, which is like a terrible part of California on the Central Coast because it was just the closest to LA. I wanted to be where the cars were. So I picked Lompoc. Lompoc was a space base, and I was the chief of media operations for public affairs. So our job was to go out and shoot the rockets, like take pictures and video, either up close or of the launches themselves, and do media interviews and all that kind of stuff. And I did it for about 2 years, and the Air Force said, I got a call one day and said, hey, we found your YouTube videos on your YouTube channel, which were all not related to the Air Force at all. It was like model stuff, it was car stuff, it was PEC, you know. And I remember they were like, yeah, so you're really good at this. We're going to reassign you. You have 2 choices. One, you can go to Guam and you can do video content with our B-52 like bomber wing out there, or you can go to Utah and we can give you a whole production wing, an $8 million budget, and you can make videos for the whole Air Force. And I was like, well, Utah sounds closer to California than Guam does. It's not hot in Utah, so send me there. And I had to decide on the phone right then. So I was like, okay. So yeah, I just kind of fell into it. I sort of chose, but I didn't really, but I was prepared to do whatever the Air Force wanted me to do because that's part of what you get for signing up.
Wow, that is interesting, actually. Yeah, so in that case, it sounds like because you were pursuing your passion of creating content on the side, that kind of brought opportunities your way. That's
sure did. Yep,
yeah.
Sure did.
That's really cool.
And
okay.
I noticed that you've also given a TEDx talk.
I have, yeah.
What is that about?
Yeah, it was the scariest day of my life. I've never been more nervous. It was a sold out auditorium. It was TEDx UNC. I think there were over 500 people there, which that's a lot of people to speak to. Like they're literally pouring out of the auditorium doors. I think there were 5 or 6 speakers that day. My topic was authenticity. And I ironically spoke on basically like career paths. So how do you live an authentic life? How do you take risks? How do you pursue a path that mean? So I definitely walked the walk because that was a speech I gave right before graduation. So I entered the Air Force like just a couple months after that, did my Air Force career, and then became a content creator.
Okay, wow. Yeah. So here's going to be, I think, a fun topic.
Cool.
I vaguely remember one of your vehicles had the license plate DM slider. Do you want to tell us about the story behind that one?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. So it was originally on the Mustang. It's on the Audi now. I put that because I was really, really, really good at networking. I happened to have a lot of models in my life. Like there was, I call my, it's like a nickname, Will Zarian, because I'm like the wholesome version of Bill Zarian. Because all the girls that were in my life, like I never like tried to date any of them. They were all just like a bunch of little sisters that I like looked after. And I was like somebody that they could like be friends with and like get introduced to the car community with. It was just like a safe space. But while I was at Vandenberg Air Force Base, while I was stuck there essentially, I needed to find a way to make my weekends in LA count because I had limited days. It was an 8-hour round trip. It was expensive to stay down there. So I needed to make sure when I showed up, I wasn't just messing around. So I leveraged Instagram because when I did have my phone, I could stand by the one window in our office on little breaks and I could DM people. I had just barely enough service to get text messaging out. So I would use hashtags and locations and whatever else to try to network and use Instagram as a tool to make sure that I could still build my network remotely from Vandenberg Air Force Base. So by the time I finally moved to California, because I remember I did 2 years at Space Command, I did 1 year in Utah at Combat Camp, I leveraged Instagram across all those years. So by the time I came to California, I actually had a network. I had connections. I had people I could ask for jobs. I had people I could get help from because I've been using the DMs. And even now, like I just got a joke. It's like, there's not really an account that I look at and be like, all right, it's impossible to get in this person's DMs. I just don't.
Oh my God,
feel
dude,
that...
you're just like me in so many ways. So I'll explain to you why, right? So I actually lived in California for 6 months. Not LA though, but Northern California, San Francisco Bay Area. And I did the same thing from a social perspective because I didn't know that many people there. So like I was connected to some people there, but like I basically reached out to them via DM, created like an entire social group, and I did exactly what you're saying. Before I moved there, for like 3 or 4 weeks before I moved there, I started messaging people that I was connected to on Instagram that lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I find that really funny.
Yeah, that's actually how Ketul, you and I met, if you remember, right? Because we weren't really friends before, right? We just met this year. So I'm glad you used that tactic to kind of grow your network in this area.
And then
Instagram's a powerful tool, man.
It
it
is, it
is.
is.
It's surprisingly powerful, right? And then the funny thing is that's the same approach we've been using for the podcast too to get guests on. There's
Mhm.
some people that I know personally, so like they're easy to get on, but there's people that I'm using through other connections to get
Yeah.
introduced to them. So like a
Yeah.
good example is like I don't know if you know the Netflix reality TV show Indian Matchmaking.
No.
All right, that's fine. It's basically it was like top 10 reality, not even reality TV show. It was like one of the top 10 shows on Netflix a
Mhm.
handful of weeks ago. And we actually
Mhm.
got cast members on from that show. And it's so funny how I approached it because what I was doing is I was looking at my existing network that were connected to
Right.
those cast members and reaching out to them to get an intro. And then
Mhm.
then once I got at least one or two of them on, I was name dropping other people of the cast to get more of the cast members on. So the
Yeah.
entire technique was hilarious. It sounds very similar to like what you're doing.
Exactly right, man. I mean, everybody that's in my house right now, every friend I hung out with today, all were people that I DM'd at some point. So, and all my friend group knows each other because I've slid into all of their DMs individually, and we've just all become friends. So, like, DM Slider is ironically, I have like really yet to use. Like, I haven't even had a girlfriend since I've moved to LA. Like, I don't even use it for that. I just like it's a really great networking tool, but it's also really great to meet all the models, like all the models that I knew. Like somehow I was saying something that wasn't creepy because I was able to shoot almost every model that I reached out to.
That makes perfect sense because I've been telling Deepam this too. It's the words you use, the syntax of the words you use that makes the
Mhm.
biggest difference. Like if you don't hit on anyone, you're just talking, on a platonic matter and just saying like you're being very authentic in your approach.
Yeah,
Are more likely to respond. I mean, it sounds like for
yeah.
you had 100% success rate. I had more like I want to say like 80-90%, but still up there.
Yeah. It's interesting because I learned a lot of little tricks. Like one of them is if you're trying to spike someone's interest, send two messages because then they don't get to see the first line. It just says two messages. The other thing is if you're going to send a line and you want someone to see it, use their first name in the first couple words because then they know it's not a bot. The other thing is if you're sending a message, keep in mind like the first 4 or 5 words they can see. So if that's helpful to what you're trying to do, remember that when you're building the text. Also, if you're trying to collaborate with someone or something like that, always ask the question you're trying to ask them in the frame of a yes or no. So they have to be able to answer it with a yes or no. If you ask an open-ended question like, "Hey, would you like to collab soon?" or something like that's even though they can answer with yes or no, it's like that's too vague. Like you have to be very
Exactly.
specific,
You're right.
and the
Mhm.
question
Yeah.
you're asking has to be something that immediately delivers value to them. So like it has to be a win for them and a cost for you in most cases if you want to make the connection.
You're absolutely right. So like the way that we've been lining up guests for, I don't know if I did that with you because I have conversed with you at least via DM in the
Mm-hmm.
past. But for people that I had no connection with whatsoever, the way I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing it is I would talk about the caliber of guests we've already brought on, and in the first
Mm-hmm.
line, exactly how you're saying, the first line that you can see, I would just do one message, but I would put like a fire emoji and then podcast opportunity, so they know when they're looking at it, it's for an actual opportunity. I'm actually adding value to them, giving
Yeah.
them increased media exposure, whatever it might be. So
Yeah.
it seems like a similar strategy. I think yours might be a little bit more refined though.
A lot of trial and error, man. I spent a lot of time in the Air Force just sending out messages and figured out what works.
Gary V. Gary V has
Yeah.
advocated for that too, right?
Oh,
What is
dude, I
it called?
watched the
Three.
two. Is it like something sent strategy or something like that? Yeah, I definitely that changed the game on how I send these messages for sure.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And this context is really helpful, Bill, because if somebody doesn't know the context about DMStar, it could mean a lot of other things as well. So
And that's the best part about the license plate is that you can take it any way you want. A lot of people think it's fun. Dude, I can't drive that car anywhere now without someone tailgating me on the freeway and taking a picture. Like it happens all the time.
oh
That's free
So
shit,
it's
publicity.
really?
That's free
yeah, oh
publicity,
yeah.
That's pretty
Well,
actually.
good. Good
it's
for you.
funny. The photo of the license plate has gone viral on meme pages multiple times, and there was no way for people to find me. And then I added a license plate frame that has my on it because it kept going
Yes.
viral. And I was like, nobody knows this is me, but now they know. Now they know.
Oh
Yeah,
wow, free
dude,
publicity.
it's actually genius how you're doing that because that's every single time someone puts up a story, that's free publicity for you.
You got it. Yeah, 100%. Dude, it happens a lot. I've literally come out of like Chick-fil-A and people are like taking pictures, not with the car, with the license plate.
Yeah, yeah, that's hilarious.
Awesome.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. We're
Mhm.
actually probably backpedaling because you briefly mentioned, but I want to dig a little bit deeper. How did the recording of like the EDC concerts, like how did that come to being?
Oh, you're gonna love this. So I snuck in. I have, it was like 2015. I came out to Vegas because I had a friend named Rob Jones who was running a nonprofit organization called the Bus Project. I told him in college when he was dreaming it up on a whiteboard that if he pulled it off, I would fly out to help him. And he actually pulled it off, which I was very not confident he would be able to do it. And I got to Vegas. We fed the homeless that day. We did some other just like charitable work. And it was about 8 p.m. and I was about to go to sleep, and I was on Snapchat and I saw this DJ duo that I was friends with and had filmed before named Cruella. And I saw them posting stuff at this concert in Vegas. And I was like, oh, are you guys doing this concert? I'll come film you. And I have my camera gear with me. And they're like, nah, we performed last night. We have tickets for tonight, but we don't want to go. We're good. Do you want them? And I was like, yeah, I'm in. So my friend Rob drove me to the MGM and I picked up a wristband. And then he drove me to what I learned that day was EDC. I didn't even know what it was, never heard of it before, never been to a music festival before. He drops me off, and I didn't know this, but I had like the all access artist pass. I had the you can get on in the booth on the stage pass. And they let me in on a golf cart. I got dropped off, and I saw a festival that had about 400,000 people in it. And I was like, oh my God, this is, because I just finished college. I was like, this is something. And I had my little camera and I filmed my own little video. I walked around all night. It starts at 7 p.m., goes till 7 a.m. And I took that footage. I made my own little after movie and I was blown away. If you've never been to EDC, it is sensory overload. The fire, the pyrotechnics, the costume design, the number of people there, how nice everyone is. I can't even describe how incredible it is. And you don't even have to like raves or EDM to appreciate what a just fairy tale-esque experience EDC is. And I tell all my friends, like, you have to go, because I never in a million years would have expected me, like from the South, conservative military officer, to have this passion for this show where people walk in and sometimes the only thing they're wearing is duct tape. Like it's polar opposite, environments.
Yeah.
And I filmed this after movie and I was like, I had tasted it and I was like, I need more of this and I need it to not stop. So I emailed every insomniac email I could find on LinkedIn, the link to my video. Watch this. I need to come back. And I emailed relentlessly for like almost every week for an entire year. And then finally someone emailed back and I found head of media relations, which by the way, she was like one of the main people I was harassing. Once I was in, I knew I had to make a contact to be able to come back because it was going to be hard to try to reach out cold. So I lied to get my way into the media ops center because I showed up and they had security and I said, oh, sorry, I like lost my badge, but here's my camera and everything. I got through the first wave of security. I got in this elevator. I started to go up. I was like, I need to find the person in charge. So I kind of have to go somewhere I'm not supposed to, because then I'm going to be like, okay, who's in charge here? And then I meet that person. So I go up in the elevator. I walk into this media room. I start talking to some people. And then next thing I know, like somebody's like, wait, who are you? And I was just wearing like a white t-shirt. Like I was nobody. And then I was like, oh, I'm here to talk to the head of media ops or something. And someone goes, Hannah? I was like, yeah, Hannah. We have like a meeting. And I'm like, oh, okay, hang on one second. Then I go get this girl. She comes back and she's like, who are you? And then they all look at me like, you said you had a meeting. I was like, Hannah, I'm sorry. I lied to your staff. My name is Will Collette. I'm a videographer. I made an after movie tonight. I need to do whatever it takes to come back and do this again. I want to work for you next year. I was like, give me your email. I'm going to send you what I'm going to shoot. I said, I'm in the Air Force right now. I'm not some like random, like troublemaking kid, and see what I can do and let me know. And we ended up talking for a minute. She's like, okay, guys, it's cool. We met out on the balcony. I remember just looking over at EDC, all the neon lights, the Ferris wheels, all the rides and everything. And she was telling me like, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, what is this? And it was just like an impromptu job interview. And after I connected with her, I got her email. And like I said, I emailed a bunch of Insomniac emails, but I definitely emailed hers until she finally replied. Like I said, it took her almost a year. And she goes, okay, first of all, I didn't realize that you literally were a random person that essentially snuck in on someone else's badge. 2, you were not supposed to have a camera inside. We have like very, very strict media rights over everything. 3, you could not have this YouTube video up. You need to take it down right now, or there's going to be some copyright action on our end. And number 4, can you come back next year and work for us because this video is phenomenal? And I was like, great, we got it. So she goes, do you know how to use a red camera? And I was like, absolutely. I didn't even know what a red camera was. I Google it. I find out it's like a cinema grade camera. So what do? We got to find solutions, right? I found out there's this thing called Cinegear in LA every year where they show off, like companies show off like their latest equipment. I knew Red was going to be there. So I was like, cool, I'm going to get a crash course on this camera like 2 months before EDC. So I know what I'm doing and I don't look like a complete idiot. So I leveraged with the Air Force. I said, hey guys, we occasionally buy production equipment. You should let me go down here and go and see what they have with the latest ingredients is so I can potentially bring some back for us. And they're like, great idea. So not only did I get to go to this thing on my own, I went on an Air Force work day and got to experience Cinegear and got trained by Red, who thought I was going to buy the cameras for the Air Force, which came full circle because when I went to that production unit, we ended up buying 8 of those cameras. So it was worth their time, but they taught me how to use the camera. And then I went to EDC and they said, we can't pay for your lodging. We can't pay for your flights. We can't pay for your food. We're barely going to pay you at all. And you're going to have to hustle, but we're taking a risk on you. And I said, don't worry, it'll be worth it. Fast forward 9 years later, I slowly worked my way at the top because my goal was to outwork everyone there. And I brought Shiv with me because I knew I needed someone dependable and I needed a teammate that I could hang with. So he and I hustled to try to get to the top. And we made it to the point where we were a 2-man team. We had our own Red camera. We could go all out where we wanted at EDC. We had the penthouse suite. We got flown in EDC's dime. We got fed nice food. We got I made more on EDC weekend than I did the entire month in the Air Force. And I remember coming back from Vegas, like everybody's like, because they see my stories, what is our Air Force captain doing? And I'm like partying with the chain smokers and stuff. Like I'm like on stage, like 1, 2, 3. And I'm like hitting the pyro buttons and stuff. And like I come back at like 6 a.m. on a Tuesday for physical training, like falling in my unit. And they're like, weren't you in Vegas like yesterday? Like it was just again, like totally different world. But the moral of the story was that hustle, that, you know, mentality of I'm gotta come back here, whatever it takes. I will find solutions where there are roadblocks, because there was not a clean cut way of getting into that in some very tightly knit, very competitive filming group that I had a friend in working for who basically told me they can't help me because it's too competitive. And then I ended up working there. So you really got to bash your way through any kind of barricades, especially if you don't even know if it's possible. It's like, I think these spots are all filled, you know, and I found my way in. I out hustled everybody there.
You are right, but I don't think it's just hustle, right? And the reason I say that is because it sounds like your approach was pivoting as necessary. Because I think that's the key. It's like a lot of people can do the work, they're willing to put in the work, but they don't have that creativity on approaching a problem differently, right? So you can't do the same solution every single time because it won't work. But if one way doesn't work, pivot to something completely different. Get feedback from other people, pivot again, right? I think the main thing, I think the reason why you've been able to do a lot of this really fascinating stuff is because I would say if you have a superpower, I think your superpower is the ability to pivot when necessary.
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
Great. Well, that was a fascinating story. So thank you for sharing that.
I was actually was on the edge of my seat, you know, where this was going. So definitely a very legendary and inspirational story. So thanks so much for sharing that.
Of course. I'm glad you guys like the stories. I have Live a Great Story tattooed on my chest because I think storytelling is the best way to teach people. It's narrative is how we learn.
And it's also amazing for networking, actually. Because now what's going to end up happening is that every person you tell that story to, they're going to remember you just because of that story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that helps.
Oh, dude, there's some crazy ones, man. Especially like Sid's coming to LA. Like there's some days where I'm like, this is like better than a movie. Like sometimes like some stuff has happened where I'm just like blown away, where I'm like, I wake up the next day, I'm like, it already happened. No one can take it away from me. I can't believe that was real life.
Wow. Oh, it's amazing. So basically, just want to switch gears a little bit. So obviously the kind of lifestyle you have, or just the kind of work you do, it's very glamorous, right? From outside, at least. I know there's a lot of grind that goes in behind the scenes. So I was just wondering, what is the misconception do people generally have looking from outside about the kind of work that you're doing? It looks glamorous from outside.
That's a really good question. I would say I sometimes make content to address assumptions that I think people have. In fact, the video that I was editing right now before this podcast was how I afford my R8, because I only recently learned that even some close friends of mine were under the impression that some essentially like a sugar daddy was bankrolling it. Like some guy that was just like, oh, I'll pay for your R8 for you. Like that was a thing. And I was like, I can't believe, like, of all the content that I put out there, that people can believe that someone else is essentially giving me this item and I'm accepting it. Like that's not who I am. Everything that I do is I love the self-made aspect of it. I think, I guess some people think that it's easy. They're like, "Oh, you're a YouTuber. What an easy job," or you do TikToks. What an easy job. And it's like I think people confuse easy and fun. Like I enjoy what I do very much, way more than many of the other jobs that I've had. But like it's still like you do it, You make a YouTube channel, you get X number of followers on TikTok, you upload every day when you don't feel like filming. Like you put yourself out there. Like I got flamed on the internet like 2 months ago for some stuff online. And I dealt with people every 5 minutes telling me the worst things ever for just a completely misinterpreted situation. So like there's challenges that come with it for sure, just like there are with any other job. But I think there's definitely a misconception that content creator means like coasting life easy, because I think there are some content creators out there that either have like a trust fund, or they have an easy life, or they walked into an easy opportunity, whatever, and they choose content creation as a profession because there's nothing else that appeals to them, or they choose it for the wrong reasons. Like maybe it comes from like a motivation of like just wanting like attention or having followers or whatever. So they do what content creation really is, because people see that easy life. They're like, wow, how does this model have 2 million followers and never have to pay for anything and always flies to England every weekend? It's like, for some people, yeah, that's really easy. For me, it absolutely is not.
Yeah, and actually, you made a great point there. They actually don't know your story. Most of them, at least, right? Like
Yeah.
obviously, the people close to you know like the grind that you've gone through, the hustle, the learnings that you've had along the way. And in that process, I think this podcast is actually a great opportunity for you to kind of share your
Redirect them here.
story.
I like that
Redirect
plug.
them here.
I like that plug, Deepo.
I know,
like
right?
that plug.
Redirect them here, like to kind of show them like the kind of hustle or the grind you have to go through in order to get where you are, and it's still ongoing. It's not like it's easy right now, right? Like the grind is still ongoing, and it'll continue to go like this. So definitely something you can share with your
Oh yeah.
criticism.
Yeah. So actually, Bill, a question. I don't think I asked you before, but is this your first podcast, or have you recorded podcasts before?
I've done a bunch.
Oh, nice. Okay, awesome.
I love doing podcasts. That's why you asked me. I was like, you could have had 10 subscribers, and I've been like, yeah, I'm down. Like, I really like podcasts. I really like, if one person could hear the podcast and be like, oh my God, like that was what I needed to hear, and it was worth it. So yeah, I also like the open-ended opportunity to try to teach some of the things that I've learned. And I found that the people that are usually hosts also know a lot of stuff. So sometimes they have some things and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Like what you were talking about earlier, like some of the conclusions that you drew, I was like, I didn't even think of it. Like the superpower of pivoting. I've never seen myself that way. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you actually bring up a good point. It's like the people that start podcasts, they usually have some kind of intellectual, I guess focus, I guess is the right way to put it. And it varies by podcast host, right? It's like if it's a specific themed podcast, then like they're really good at one topic. But you're right, there's a lot to learn from podcast hosts because they started, usually in most cases, they started podcasts for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. I guess Deepam, do you want to switch gears and go to the rapid fire round of the podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so as the name suggests, rapid fire. First thing that comes to mind, let me know when you're ready, and we'll go from there.
Let's do it.
All right. So let's start with an easy one: tea or coffee?
Tea or coffee? Neither. I can't drink caffeine.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So
no caffeine, baby.
All right. Interesting. Mountains or beaches?
Mountains or beaches? Oh, beach. Why do you think I'm all sunburned today? I spent like half my day on the beach. Mountains are boring, man. Beach all the way.
Okay. Morning person or night owl?
I love how I feel in the morning when I get a jump on everything and I attack the day and it's not even noon and I'm like, we're on top of the world. But I find it way easier to get in that late night creative phase. Can I get afternoon shoot at sunset? I can spend like 5 hours at those and not even be aware of time. So they both have their places. I think morning for analytical stuff I can jam on, at night creative stuff.
Got it. Interesting. Okay. What's your favorite comfort food?
My favorite comfort food? Free. I love free food. I'm comfortable with free.
Any specific cuisine that you prefer?
Greek, Greek
Greek?
food, because
Okay.
it's so healthy. Like I'm really I have to pay so much attention to like what I eat and my diet. So Greek food, I can eat basically everything in that cuisine, and it is delicious.
Nice.
I 100% agree with that. What's your favorite virtue in others?
Oh man, that's not a rapid fire question. That's a hard
It's
question.
not. No, it's
Can
not.
you rephrase it so I can try to? It seems like a like. Give me an example. What's your what?
So what's the quality that you find attractive in other people,
Yeah, yeah,
like friends
yeah.
Yeah.
or relatives or something?
If it helps, I'll give you mine. It's radical authenticity.
I love that. Mine is dependability.
Got it.
I will cut someone off that's not dependable, and I will become friends with someone really fast, and I know I can count on dependability all the way.
Awesome. What's your biggest pet peeve?
People that don't do what they say they're going to do. It kind of falls back on dependability. I get frustrated so fast when people promise something that they can't keep, or at least I see an effort of them. Like they just don't even. Their word doesn't mean anything. People that don't value my time, and people that just don't show up. There's the just participation. So you
Hmm.
got to be dependable.
Got it. Okay. The next question, I think Ketul alluded to this a little bit when we were discussing this before, but is what's your secret superpower? Maybe we can hear it from your perspective.
Your answer was so much better than what I come up with. um, I would say my energy. So like I noticed that like when I recharge when I'm around other people, and I think my energy also recharges people because I have so much of it. Part of it comes from, again, like feeling like that slingshot mentality. I was like ready to go, but I've always kind of had that energy even as a kid. And as I mentioned, caffeine's not really part of my diet, and sleep unfortunately hasn't even been prioritized. So I don't. It's got to come from somewhere, but I would say this like very extroverted, everybody has something to offer. You can learn something from everybody attitude and just general excitement and passion for life in general. It rubs on people very quickly. And I see that in a lot of people because I see them just people that are just not having a good day. They can sometimes just light up, and all I have to do is be myself.
Okay,
That's
I
awesome.
love that. And actually, I remind me again. Did you mention Tony Robbins earlier? You listened to Tony Robbins as well?
He was one of them. Yeah, if I haven't mentioned him.
Okay. Because like the reason I say that is because what you're describing makes perfect sense to me because it sounds like what really exhilarates you is progress, right? So
Hmm.
it sounds, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I'm getting off of what you're saying. Because when you're constantly pursuing something and you see the progress coming in, whether it's subscriber growth, whether it's follower count growth, whether it's, networking and meeting up with the people that you wanted to target to meet up with
Hmm.
and build a relationship connection with, it sounds
Yeah.
to me like it's that progress that actually empowers you and gives you that energy.
That's probably right because I know when I felt stuck at the Air Force Base when I first joined, a lot of my energy left because I was like, oh no, I might be in something that I'm stuck with and can't control, and that freaked me out. But I, had to make decisions. But yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. So next question is, what's a superpower you wish you had?
Um, that's tough. Because not because I can't think of one because there's too many and I don't know which one's the best answer. uh, um,
Let's
I
go
think
with multiple. It's
I
fine.
do.
Let's go with
Okay.
multiple.
Right off the bat, like I wish, I wish I could do better with fitness. I feel like I'm not optimal there. I feel like I spend a lot of time with fitness and I've spent a lot of time with like my diet and everything, but I still know that I'm not at my best potential, which bothers me because I know the window for perfect body is like closing. And like as I'm entering 30, I feel like I'm still in my prime. So it's like I want to see how good it can get, but I can't do that if I cheeseburger like I did today, or I can't do that if I'm not going to the gym as much as I think I should. It's just I feel like there's more potential there. But it's hard when I feel like I'm already giving so much, but I know deep down there's more. And I think that could be a metaphor for other things. There's even like how you spend your time. God, I wish I could not do TikTok as much as I do. Oh, that is the biggest time suck for me. Like what a weakness. And TikTok has destroyed my attention span too. So it's like those things all are definitely weak points. where like I just, again, it's like goes back to like that wasting potential. That freaks
Mm-hmm.
me out because that's like my biggest fear is like getting to life with like at the end of life with like resentment. And it's like if I know I wasted time on TikTok when I could have been in the gym, or if I could have, uploaded another YouTube video or whatever else, it's like I hope there's never an opportunity for me to see exactly what I could have been if I spent less time on A and spent more time on B, because like that definitely bothers me sometimes.
Got it. Okay. Um, Interesting. All right. So next question is not really rapid fire, but what's been your biggest accomplishment in the last 1 or 2 years? I know there's been many, but which is the biggest?
I know the answer right now. Is the biggest accomplishment of my life. That was buying that 2012 V10 R8 supercar. That was the one thing I
Nice.
wanted
Wow.
my entire life. Like that is my whole. I didn't want a family. I didn't want a white kids. I didn't want a specific job. Nothing more than buying a supercar, and I did that this year.
Nice.
That is
Congratulations.
awesome.
That's amazing.
Congrats. How does it feel now that you have it?
I feel hungry for more. I want it to be faster. I want it to be louder. I'm changing things. Like we no stopping, no stopping. I want an STO. I want an MC20. But like it was just that hump of getting over. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just an average kid that has an average job or is working minimum wage or in the military or whatever. Shifting now to I'm someone that has a real skill set that is applicable in a lot of different industries that you can make money with, enough money, in fact, to buy something that you kind of in the back of your mind thought might have been unattainable. Like obviously people have it, but it's like it's a whole different ballgame when you're the one that has to do it, when you're the one that has to afford it. So I would say like being able to kind of prove to myself that that was an attainable asset, and there's more room to go.
That
Great.
is absolutely
Fantastic.
amazing. I love that. 100%. Okay, so that actually brings us to the end of our rapid fire.
Well,
I
I
guess
have one more question.
go
Right?
for it.
And that question is, what's next for you? Right? Because you've done a lot already.
Mhm.
You want to do more, but do you have an idea on what is more? Like, what's next for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. I have a question for you because this is the question I ask myself, and this is how you get your answer. If you have reached a point where you've got skill sets, you have solid income, you have solid network, you have solid foundation, you know where your passion lies, how do you scale it? What's
Systems,
something you do?
systems and processes. That's what it
Okay.
is. Systems and processes. And the other thing is you need to build out a team. So
Okay.
once you got to the point that you have the skill set, the problem that most people run into is that you're not able to scale it because you're still just one person. So
Hmm.
the next area to pivot then, in my humble opinion, there is to get a team in place that has similar skill sets or complementary skill sets and work with them to take things to the next level, right? It could be as simple as
Okay.
now you create a content creation agency, or you,
Yeah.
or maybe you have, you have other videographers so you can shoot multiple things at the same time. Like basically to scale, you're going to need a team because one person can only do so much. The other option is to go completely digital and do something where it's some kind of digital product that you can just distribute, to so many places at the same time.
Okay.
Those are like my two thoughts there, but I'm just speaking off the cuff here, so I haven't had time
Yeah,
to.
I mean, in a way, kind of did that because I'm in a content creation house now. So brought other creators to the table, filled the house with other YouTubers. I mean, there's two YouTubers sitting downstairs right now, and we're all working on content together. So like, and it definitely helps because once you have the crossover of the different audiences, you grow. I've thought about doing a team for the influencer marketing aspect of it, but I really struggled to find people that had the kind of drive that I was looking for, the
I
hunger to
see.
learn.
Hmm.
So like I found people that I could have taught the subject to, but no one that was passionate about it enough that had the same like, yeah, let's get it done, like kind of focus that I had. So then I was like, all right, well, where's my biggest bottleneck? And that is in cash flow. So I was like, okay, you can only work so many hours in a day. I can only make so many videos in a day. So how can I scale cash flow? And the answer to me was real estate. So I used that
Ah,
network that I had, found a guy that ironically had a supercar at a car show, and I talked to him, became really good friends with him, answered a lot of questions for him, solved a lot of problems for him. Then finally he was like, listen, I need you on my team. If you can help me scale my business with your social media skill set, then I will be able to scale your income. And I was like, sounds like a great trade-off. So I've spent a lot of time in the last couple months studying real estate to become an MLO, and also leveraging the VA loan to own and
amazing.
rent out my own.
Mhm.
So yeah, just adding a new skill set to the table, because you can't the benefit of being in the car world is I got to spend a lot of time talking to supercar and hypercar owners, and I always just get there. Like, what's the financial backing to this type of asset? Because I get it,
Mhm.
car payments and loans and everything, but you're in a Koenigsegg, it's a whole different ballgame. So like, how do you do it? Everybody said the same thing. It was either ecom, real estate, or some kind of financial management thing, like a hedge fund or something like that. So I looked into ecom and I found out that I was grasping real estate more. So you got to have those three things if you want
You
a
are
even
right.
better supercar.
You're absolutely right. And you're actually in the ideal industry in order to network with very high net worth individuals that can
Mm-hmm.
become partners in future real estate transactions, or maybe you can broker deals together and take a piece of commission
100%.
and all that. So you're right on.
100%, man. And it's interesting because, and this would apply to all of your listeners. This is like one of the best, easiest nuggets to digest. Is the best place that I have ever found to network is a morning cars and coffee car shows. Like,
Really?
it's you don't have
Mhm.
to care about cars at all. I've brought so many, like the DM Slider license plate is kind of a joke, but like there have been many car shows that I've shown up with my Mustang completely full of models, and they'll just like pour out of the bag. I'll have like 5 girls in this like 4-passenger Mustang, and they'll go and talk to people and come back, and they don't care about cars. They're just kind of there. And they're like, oh, literally met the creator of Call of Duty at one of these things. Met,
That's
who was
awesome.
it? Like so many big influencers, so many big, really smart, like what is it, commercial real estate, like tycoons, like just people that understand business. And on a Sunday morning, cars and coffee, like you can't go to the one that has like a bunch of like dads in their Corvettes. Like you got to go to the ones that have like Lambos and McLarens and stuff. And every single person there wants to talk about two things: their cars and themselves. So if you just fire away questions, they're so excited to talk about both. And it's like a low stress environment because most people don't think you're trying to sell them anything. So you can just make the best network ever in a morning car show, and it's free.
Oh wow, that's a huge
That's a
learning.
really good point. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
basically that's like there's certain industries that you can network with a lot of fascinating people that are successful across many different industries. And you're right, whenever you're dealing with supercars, it's only very successful people that are going to be going to those venues. So that you're right in the sense that
Mm-hmm.
it's an ideal environment to make those connections.
100%, man. And when they start to see you, especially if like I'm talking about in my video, like showing up in a supercar also comes with a massive amount of credibility, because I get treated differently now coming in an R8 versus a V6 Mustang, which only makes the marketing and networking that much easier. But like, it's a gold mine. It's a gold mine of people that I've done so much business. I do more business on a Sunday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. than I do the entire week at the job, because all of those people that I'm connecting with and building relationships with and essentially making sales to, all of their cards get swiped during the week.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so it sounds like you're on the
Awesome.
right track there. I 100% agree in the sense of pursuing real estate. It's going to be a perfect like complementary area to look at in addition to what you're doing with content creation and cars and all that. Great. So going back to my original question, what was my original question? I don't even remember.
What's next for you?
What's next for you? Yep, that's
Oh
the
yeah,
question. Oh,
what's
you
that?
already
Yeah,
answered that. Never mind.
real estate,
Yeah.
real estate. Yep.
Okay,
Awesome.
awesome.
All right. Well, this was an amazing discussion. I don't want to keep you for too much longer. I guess, Deepa, if you want to ask your final question.
Yes, yeah. So, well, thanks for sharing all this knowledge. Obviously, extremely helpful for all of our listeners, including me. Do you have any final recommendations for our listeners? And a recommendation could be anything, a YouTube video or a book or a podcast, anything you came across that inspired you the most that kind of jumps out right now?
Yeah. I would say that to learn how to learn if you want to level up in whatever it is you're trying to do. If your goal is like mine was to get a Lamborghini Murcielago, or if your goal is to move to a big city or to be a full-time content creator or whatever it is you're trying to go after, you have to learn how to learn. It's called a growth mindset. I think the best
Hmm.
teacher of that concept that I have found is Tom Bilyeu and his show Impact Theory. You can get it on Spotify, podcast, YouTube. If not, read. A lot of people hate reading. I like it because a lot of people hate it, and I'm learning that I am passing a lot of people because I do enjoy learning. It's like a shortcut. It's like cheat codes to life. But don't
Yep.
read books like I love like Hunger Games, Harry Potter, whatever. They're great, but they're not gonna teach you like what Atomic Habits is gonna teach you, or like Blink is gonna teach you, or all these books that go into psychology and how the brain thinks, or Man's Search for Meaning. Like there's so many books out there that are just hacks to life that could push you forward 5 or 10 years, and you're what, an hour and a half, 2 hours of reading away from it. 10 minutes a night could change everything. Reading is the real shortcut if
It
you're looking for shortcuts.
it's so funny you mentioned that because on an Instagram story, I posted something very similar just like a week ago. And the thought process was I actually used the exact word you said. It's a cheat code to life. And the reason I said that is because if you think about it, the author of these business books, they probably accumulated 10, 20, 30 years of experience just
Hmm.
to have enough knowledge to create that book. And so
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
you as a consumer, you spending maybe 2 or 3 hours over whatever time frame just reading that means
Hmm.
you've learned and accumulated probably anywhere from 10 to 30 years of experience just through one
Yeah.
reading session.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in
Yeah.
that sense, it really is a cheat code. It's like it
Yeah.
really is. Yeah.
People are always looking for shortcuts. That's literally a shortcut. It's literally a fast track to leveling up.
Mhm. Awesome.
All right, fantastic. So before we officially end the podcast, I wanted to give you a chance to plug any social media platforms that you wanted to share with the audience here.
Super
Um,
easy. Instagram. Follow me on Bilko. Billco. One place. I answer every DM.
okay, awesome. Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you for sharing that. And then finally, thank you all for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion. If you guys are not already connected with the Your Life Unfiltered podcast on Spotify and on Instagram, please be sure to give us a follow. We would also appreciate reviews. Thank you all for listening and have a fantastic day. Take care.
Thank you.